Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to In Time. We have decided to forego the standing by and intro, at least for now. We're going to go without that for a little bit, see how that goes. Nobody watches it on the rewatch anyway, and so we'll try it. We may put the intro back. But until then, we've got the bumper, and here we are live. Thank you all for joining us. I know it works. I know. I was surprised too. I guess Dave gets to keep his job. Thank you all for joining us. Somebody said, "What? Oh my God! Why are you coming here? You know, you might get a dose of reality. Not today, you're not." I'm pretty sure nobody's going to be getting much reality today. We've got a lot to talk about. Reality does not intersect with much of it. Xander, how are you?
Pretty good.
That's good.
Confused.
Yeah. Yes.
Annoyed. Scratching my head.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the feels.
Okay. Good. We're on the same page then. So I want to start with Charlie Kirk because I think that's going to be what we're going to talk about most, and we're going to go at it from a slightly different perspective than most. But before we do that, especially since it's something that I think is a little bit of a pet peeve of yours and mine, Xandering, is the commission of murder. And we're not talking about the political assassination of Mr. Kirk yet, but just sort of outright murder, going around murdering people that you're not supposed to murder. That's why they call it murder, not killing. And in this case, the murder several days ago of 11 people on a boat by blowing the boat up, and then the murder of 3 people today by blowing another boat up. And I assume, Xandering, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
A bad Pirates of the Caribbean movie?
No, it's not a bad. Well, yeah, actually, maybe it is. The head pirate, what's his name, Barbosa, is being played by an orange. Donald J. Trump ordered the destruction of, and he has confirmed that he ordered it. Pete Hegseth passed the order down of the destruction of a boat that had 11 civilians on it. Now, those civilians may or may not have been human traffickers. Now, that would make them criminals. But keep in mind, even criminals are civilians. The distinction here is civilian versus military, not criminal versus civilian or non-criminal. The U.S. military is not a policing organization, deliberately so, and I think Xandring will be able to enlighten us as to why on that. He's got some opinions, I suspect, but for reasons, we've all seen reports of military targeting civilians and killing them. That's one of our great complaints right now about what Israel is doing in Gaza and has been doing in Lebanon, Gaza. And look, there are some military targets there, but it's like you've got one military target, 1,000 civilians, and they're like, just drop a couple bombs in there and see if you get lucky. That's called murder. Actually, it's called genocide if you keep doing it long enough. So, the question is, at that point, is what Donald Trump doing murder? Now, the original boat did not have the ability to reach the U.S. It was unarmed, and if it carried any cargo, we couldn't see it. But none of the people on board were combatants. And it was ordered destroyed. As Xandering, you know far more about the Constitution than I do. What are your thoughts about each of these attacks and or presidential ability to do them?
I can find no warrant in the Constitution which authorizes the executive to commit murder outside of the United States, or for that matter, inside of the United States. I can't find any warrant in the Constitution that allows the federal government to initiate the use of force against unarmed, or at least no evidence that they all are armed, non-threats to the United States. So I can only deduce that this was extrajudicial murder of foreign citizens.
The argument that has been made, first of all, was that well, they're selling drugs which are going to kill Americans, ergo. The irony is they don't seem to find that, what is it, drugs that kill people, not people? It's like, wait a minute, because that seems to be the opposite of the gun argument. But that notwithstanding, that boat in particular couldn't even reach the U.S., so it would have had to stop somewhere, and they've shown no evidence so far, and there's been no judicial process that I'm aware of. It is the idea that the cartels pose an existential threat to the U.S. Does that somehow, in your view, permit this kind of attack?
No. There is no evidence that I have seen or that has been made public that I am aware of that show that the cartels are an existential threat to the United States in any way, shape, or form. Remember what existential threat actually means. It means like the threat of annihilation, complete extinction. They can harm you and badly. The threat of not existing anymore, that's an existential threat. And there is no way that I can even comprehend any way that any of the cartels, even if they all banded together, could pose that kind of risk to the United States. And by saying, oh, well, their importation of drugs and gun running and all of these other terroristic acts, maybe they pose an indirect threat to the United States. But if that's the case, that still, even if you could make that case, that still doesn't make them a clear and present danger. Throw back to the original Patriot. Excuse for going after them. You may, go ahead and use indirect means to try and address the problem, but you're also forgetting that, drug use in the United States isn't forced upon everybody. It's not like this is a one party violating the rights of somebody else. There's, some willingness in there. I guess you could make the claim that they're tricked into it somehow, or maybe they actually are forcing people down and sticking heroin needles in their arms. I don't know where you arrive at this thing that, because they're fulfilling a black market product, that they're somehow an existential threat to the United States. Do I think that we should be working on trying to limit and eliminate the trafficking of those drugs into the United States? Yeah, I do. I don't think launching missiles at boats that are of no threat to the United States with no apparent evidence of it being armed, no evidence beyond, trust me, bro, they're cartel members hauling drugs. I don't see any of the evidence, and everybody should be very concerned about, the executive just deciding it's going to eliminate people and say, trust me, they were bad.
Well,
no,
unless
I don't trust you. I want evidence.
Well, and unless I missed something. The only defense that I heard was Hegseth saying they were going to kill Americans, and I'm not going to apologize if Americans were going to end up dead as a result of their actions at some point down the line. The problem is you can say that of alcohol. Alcohol kills a lot of Americans. Cars kill a lot of Americans. Guns kill a lot of Americans. Drugs kill a lot of Americans. He didn't even mention that it was illicit or illegal. There's plenty of things that kill a lot of Americans, legal things and illegal things. If the definition of an authorization of deadly force, disproportionate deadly force too, because, and this was something that I heard pointed out and I thought was worthwhile, which was if these guys were able to make it to the U.S. and had made it to the U.S. and did have drugs and they likely would have been intercepted by the Coast Guard. If they had been intercepted by the Coast Guard, they would not have gotten life sentences. They probably would have gotten 20, 30 years, and then they'd be deported back to their Venezuela. So even the civil authorities did not find what they were doing a capital crime. So they have been executed. They were unarmed. They were essentially executed for what at least the civilian authorities don't consider to be a capital crime. And again, there's been no evidence provided except, well, trust us, we know. Except so far, every time the Trump administration has said, trust us, we know, they've usually been wrong. And I had a spectacular example of this, and now I've forgotten what's going to happen is when we're talking about Charlie Kirk, I'm sure that's when I'm going to remember it. So if I suddenly jump back to this one, I don't know. Do you have any final thoughts on it before we go? And it's just because another boat was destroyed today. He's going to keep doing it. He said in a rather unhinged tweet, no, I'm confusing them. He did say that he was going to, no, that was another one. Sorry, I'm confusing tweets, so you'll have to give me a second. He, I know that Hegseth has said that the authorization continues and they're going to continue to attack narco-terrorist boats. These are boats that have been declared. But again, he can't unilaterally declare an organization a terrorist organization. That's A, not the executive branch. B, we're not at war with Venezuela. C, the Congress has not declared that we're at war with these gangs. D, these gangs are not internationally recognized terrorists by the UN. So, and if that's so, what he can do.
Do we need more letters here?
Yeah, I'm about to put the DNC. What happens if he?
How can they be classified as terrorists at all? I mean, I don't see any motivation to try and affect political change with violence. They're providing ingredients to illicit substances. I mean, now they do certainly use violence and intimidation to maintain their own power base, but they're not doing that inside of the United States that I'm aware of. I mean, I guess there's the argument that there are cartel members operating inside of the United States, but that would be a domestic policing problem, not a problem for the military. So, I mean, there's like 5 or more letters we can add here to this problem.
Well, and the other thing is, I mean, look, you can stretch things enough, and we're going to get into this also with Charlie Kirk. My concern is when you start messing with definitions of things, you can slide the bar to mean anything. This happened with John Stuart Mill's harm principle. He said, the only things that should be illegal are that which cause harm to another person. The question is, how do you define harm? And there was a famous court case. A guy was playing rap music really loudly on a boombox, which I know has dated me, as he was walking down the street, and there was a lot of offensive lyrics. The town sued him, said this caused harm. This caused harm to the residents who did not want to hear and should not be subjected to that music. The Supreme Court back then sided with him and said, no, there's always, anything does cause harm. There's always some harm. There's a question then of competing constitutional rights. This guy is a free person with the right to play that music going down the street if he wants to. You have a right to not have to listen to it. Which right are we going to find is more important? And what they said is it's more important that people can come down the street and play as long as they're not actually committing physical injury. So my concern is what happens when Trump says the DNC is spreading disinformation about me. They've been lying about me in the Epstein files. They've been doing this, they've been doing that, and they're now a terrorist organization, which is exactly how Pinochet came to power. We talked about Pinochet, why we use him as an example specifically, and it was scary because you and I started that conversation like 3 years ago, and we're still having it. So I just get worried that, these were unarmed civilians. There was no adjudication. There has been no accounting to anybody by Trump. All he says is, trust me, we got the right guys. And this is the same guy who put Kash Patel in the head of the FBI, and they don't appear to be functioning particularly well, in my view. Well, again, we'll get to that in a second. So I don't know. What are your thoughts? Did I finally mute you? I keep hitting the mute button. Did it finally, work?
I think so.
Oh. Well, that was nice while it lasted.
Yeah. I figured out what she had done, and I fixed your problem for you.
Well, it's glad somebody knows how to fix it.
Yeah, I have problems with, our entire justice system is predicated off of, due process. I mean, that's a founding pillar of this country and the legal system, and the fact that they're killing people in international waters that, from their own evidence that they have released, pose no threat to the United States. No direct threat.
Yeah.
There's no apparent weaponry. I guess technically they could have it in the bottom of the boat and they can say, oh no, we have an informant that sent us video of them loading this particular boat, but they're not providing any of that evidence. And I don't see how providing any of that evidence would compromise their mission. Maybe they think that it does. I don't know if they even have any of that stuff. But the evidence that they have provided to justify their actions seems insufficient to warrant the actions. And I very much question when the federal authority starts acting counter to the Constitution, especially when they act in violent ways that they don't appear to have authorization to do, that I cannot find any warrant in the Constitution to allow them to do this. They're not with the military. I don't see how you justify this. And it bothers me, just like a lot of things bother me, that they're chipping away at the restraints that are supposed to constrain the federal government from becoming, an all-powerful tyrannical force, subjugating everybody and everything that it disagrees with.
Yeah, that's who'd have thought. I'm on the left and I'm worried about that. I'm now a conservative. That just blows my mind. Yeah, and it certainly wasn't proportionate use of power either, which is usually considered in justified use of power. It's not in the Constitution, but in the justified use of power, usually it has to be proportionate. If somebody punches you in the leg, you're not allowed to take out a gun and blow their head off. You can retaliate or do what it takes to stop them, but if what it takes to stop them punching you in the leg is blowing their head off, no, that's not permissible. And that's every civilized justice system that I'm aware of, including our own, recognizes that use of force has to be in some way proportionate to the offense.
Well, and that, I mean, if you're going to use the U.S. Navy to do this, the U.S. Navy has very good interdiction teams. They have the Navy SEALs. Yes. While we were on deployment, while I was still in the Navy, we did these drills where the Navy SEALs came in on their helicopters. They dropped in. They infiltrated the ship. It was an entire training exercise where they took over our ship, assuming they had specific actors to go through the entire scenario to take over a ship. And because we were doing interdicting different vessels in the North Arabian Sea and the Gulf to check for illicit goods against that were embargoed. So we've done this a lot. There is no reason that they could not have intercepted these and these people to verify of what they were actually carrying. I mean, we're never going to know because they're not going to bother to go try and dig this stuff up off the bottom of the ocean, assuming any of it survived the weaponry that was actually used to destroy them. So it's like we have the capability of doing this. If they truly have evidence and truly believe that's what these people are doing, we have the ability and the training to interdict these boats instead of just blowing them up. I mean, I guess it's just too much effort to go through and verify that they're actually running this stuff, to get a hold of the people who are doing it, try and get information from them, etc. No, we're not going to bother with that anymore. We're just going to start, launching Hellfire missiles at people. That should frighten anybody.
Yeah. Well, and so we're going to have to do a show on that because Charlie Kirk is sucking the oxygen out of every topic. We're not discussing it now, and I think we may just do a nick of time on that because I think it's something that requires a significant breakdown of the legal issues revolving using the military against civilian targets. And you can declare them anything you want to. I for once on Twitter for a year declared myself the king of Siam and tried to get people to prove I wasn't. Nobody succeeded, by the way, but that notwithstanding. And people who know me know this, that I was the king of Siam for a year. I can declare that, but, and it's ironic because Trump seems to be of the mind that people should not be able to unilaterally declare things, and yet. But nonetheless, the other two pieces of news I would like to cover, and then we're going to get into the Charlie business. First, the UN today has declared that what is happening in has successfully declared. They tried with over our objections, but it's not a Security Council declaration. It's a resolution, which means that the U.S. and Israel can object to, but cannot stop the declaration. What Israel is doing in Gaza has now been declared a genocide. What that means is the U.S. is now, as a member of the Geneva Conventions, obligated to stop selling weapons to Israel. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen with that going forward. My suspicion is Trump is going to ignore it. But it's worth knowing, and we'll keep an eye on. And then the second story is that we have now declared that Colombia is no longer acting in good faith with us on the fight against drugs. It is true that a much higher quantity of cocaine has been coming in from Colombia year after year. Donald Trump has decided to blame the president of Colombia. Colombia is one of the more active collaborators with us to try to prosecute the war on drugs, but he feels that they have been failing. So he has said that they are now on the sort of enemies list. Colombia has protested, but Trump has said he is not going to act on it right now. So this seems like one of his regular tactics, which is to sort of threaten to do something bad, see if he can get something out of them, and then everything's back to normal. Meanwhile, Venezuela, to the best of my understanding, has cut all ties with the U.S. Any thoughts on that before we go on to Kirk?
I don't think alienating all of the countries around the world that are at least in theory trying to help us, especially when it's a problem that's originating from their own country. It's like you got to look at some of the South American and Central American governments as going, they don't have nearly the power that our federal government does. They don't have nearly the resources our federal government does. I don't think it's necessarily wise to threaten them. Last thing we want to do is alienate all of the people who are at least publicly trying to support us.
Yes.
Also, there was another Ukrainian offensive in eastern Russia that appears to have happened, though most of the information is coming from Ukraine itself. So there may be a little bit of bias in the.
We're gonna have to talk to Greg about that. You know what? I haven't spoken to Greg since he got back anyway. So I'm gonna give Greg a call. That actually does remind me, and Titan brought this up, and I think he's got a very good point. Again, I don't like usually waiting this long to get to the main issue, but. Again, it's just sort of like it's going to have to be Charlie Kirk, because if we talk about anything else, people are going to be like, why aren't you talking about Charlie Kirk? And they're going to change the channel. They're not going to hear what we have to say anyway. But Titan said the following, that due to our sanctions, Venezuela can no longer afford to import food, which is he's absolutely correct. And they have food shortages already, which I did not know about. Their sources of protein are beef, dairy, chicken, beans, and seafood. You can't eat all the beef, because if you do that, you run out of dairy. Chickens, you've got the same problem. You can't eat all your chickens, or else you've got no more eggs. Beans, you always need some to plant. So they have very limited resources. The one that they actually have in excess of is fishing. The two reports that, I've only seen one report on the first boat, and that was that it was in fact a fishing boat. The problem is nobody has the ability to confirm that right now, and unless somebody goes to Venezuela and gets the actual records of that boat as it left and with any luck, a real journalistic newspaper or organization is looking into that right now. Having said that, whatever they find is most likely going to be ignored, because that's kind of the status quo in this country right now. But having said that, what Titan just pointed out, and I think he's got an excellent point, and thank you, Titan, for bringing this up, is that essentially, that this is a tactic to get Venezuela to bend the knee and capitulate entirely to the U.S., because if all the fishermen are afraid to go out and go fishing, or else their boats are going to explode, they're left with a situation where they are starving, and they either capitulate to the United States or starve to death. And so we are using the ruse of drugs to eliminate their fishing industry. The first boat, the only intelligence that I saw of anybody analyzing the footage from that boat said, look, it's a fishing boat. There's no evidence there was any other cargo on board. None of those men appeared to be armed. So if they were smuggling or trafficking anything, it was either human beings, which is possible. Human trafficking does happen out of Venezuela, but that's not what this administration said, and their story keeps changing. Or it was a fishing boat.
Wait, before you say or you say, before you go on.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Even if it were a human trafficking boat, when did it become the policy that we're going to wipe out all of the innocent trafficked individuals along with their traffickers?
That is the other, yes. That was, let's assume it was human trafficking. 3 or 4 of them would have been armed traffickers, and nobody appeared armed from that video. Hard to tell, but if you go frame by frame and try to sort it out, I'm told you can get some idea of whether or not they're armed or not, and the general consensus is none of them were armed, and there were no weapons in the boat. You can see the boat reasonably clearly. If you blow up this boat and it was engaged in human trafficking, you just killed a whole bunch of victims of human trafficking as well. So it was either drug trafficking, or even the lame excuse that you've got is already gone. So either way, there's a million problems. But even if it was an illegal drug smuggling boat, fishermen are going to be less inclined to head out. And if it was a fishing boat, no fishermen are going to head out. That would be 2 fishing boats blown up in a... Now, the second boat, I have no intelligence on. I haven't done any research on the second boat. There were 3 people on board. That's all I know. But the first boat, the people that I trust that have looked at it say that there is no evidence that there was any illegal drugs. They usually load those boats up to the hilt with drugs. You can't see them from the top because they don't want to be spotted by a helicopter or satellites, so they don't just leave them as these open boats. You know what they have for open boats? Fishing. So it was a fishing boat, one way or another. And if it was loaded with drugs, there was a lot of room in that boat. That didn't look like it was packed with drugs, so it was either smuggling human beings or it was fishing. And neither of which this administration has claimed. That notwithstanding, I think Titan's got an excellent point. Now, it's unfortunate if the U.S. has decided that we are going to use famine as a weapon against countries we don't like. Having said that, we've gotten very close with Benjamin Netanyahu, who is irrefutably and undeniably doing the exact same thing to 2.1 million people. It would surprise me a lot less today than it would have 4 or 5 years ago, or even in the first Trump administration. So thank you for that, Xandering, because I think you are correct. We were missing the forest for the trees there, which is this appears to be much more about really leveraging Venezuela to the brink of disaster before, having them capitulate and give us whatever it is that we want out of that country. And that is unfortunately how Trump has a tendency to operate. I believe I got Titan's correct. Titan, if I missed anything, please don't hesitate to let me know. Is Andrew any final thoughts before we go on to an even worse debacle?
The only thing that I would mention is that was Titan's idea, not mine. So you meant to thank Titan, not me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you, Titan, for that. And Titan says I got it right. So good. Very nice catch by Titan. So thank you. So now on to okay, is it fair to call Kirk's murder a political assassination? Well, A, there's still no motive. B, he was alive. Oh, that's a good question. I think that's a really good question, Dunk. The question is, should we be calling Kirk's killing an assassination? A political assassination.
No, a political assassination.
Yes,
was an
political.
assassination.
Yes. I call it a political assassination. I think it's up to the individual. I think if someone were to challenge me on it, I would not be able to prove that it was a political assassination, but I don't think I have to prove it if I'm not actually, making the claim. I'm using the terminology, and when I'm using the terminology, I think we're all allowed a little extra freedom. I think because he was so politically active, if he was in a car crash, I probably would not say that this was a politically motivated car crash. We all get into car crashes, regardless of our politics. But he was shot at 180 by some accounts yards by someone who planned this at least a little bit and killed him in a single shot. That strikes me as probably motivated politically in some way or another. And once you're motivated by his speech, even if it's just you don't like the guy and you hate his speech was all political. I mean, if you happen to know him and he hit on your girlfriend and you were really mad at him, and so then you went to the campus and shot him, okay, there was assassination that was not politically motivated. But anything short of knowing him personally and killing him for some other reason, his entire venue of operation was politics, religion also, but the religion was, he did not differentiate between religion and politics. So I think saying it was a political assassination is not guaranteed to be true, but it's plausible enough that it's fair to use the terminology. Any thoughts, Zandri?
Yeah, also, he was a political activist, so even if he wasn't an actual politician, he was trying to change minds, sway people to his points of view and those of the conservative movement, to motivate people to go out and vote for these policies and these politicians. So he was Turning Point USA is absolutely a political organization trying to make political change. So unless they knew him personally and was deciding to shoot him for some other reason, then I would think that it's fair to call it a political assassination.
Somebody pointed out if everything he does is propaganda, then it's not a political assassination. I would actually still probably disagree with that. But let's move forward.
Yeah, because propaganda is still used, to sway people's minds politically.
Propaganda is a tool of politicians. It's not a tool of criminals as much. They do it. But propaganda, who's the best propagandist in the world? It's Putin. And he is a propagandist and political mastermind. But the propaganda is a tool of what he's doing, and certainly don't agree with the politics. It's a kleptocracy. But anyways, that notwithstanding, okay. So for those of you who would like to understand the reality of Charlie Kirk's assassination, I would say go to another channel, because we're not going to offer any answers, and we're not going to offer any answers. But I don't think any other channel is going to either. So stick with us and we'll all be confused together, because there's a lot about this that's confusing. I think when he was first killed, as often happens, I remember when Trump was first shot in the ear, and it was an attempted assassination, and everybody said it had to be the left, and of course it turned out to be the right. It's just one of those things. I've been sitting there going, God forbid it can be the right 20 times, and if it's the left just once, those leftists are all terrorists. So, there's nothing you can do about that. That's how the narrative's going to be spun. So when something like this happens, it's interesting how many 20 different parties all say, oh God, I hope he's not us. I hope he's not ultra right. I hope he's not like a disaffected. So, and then it's like you learn that his entire family was MAGA. It's like, oh, if you're on the left, you're like, yay. And if you're MAGA, you're like, oh. And then you learn he spent a semester in college. Oh, well, that's it. He was radicalized in that one semester in college. That must have done it, It's just like, well, do you have evidence for that? It's college in Utah. It's electrical school. Are they known for, radicalizing, far left? And the other thing, and we've said this before, and I don't know if Zandring's got what his view on this is. I know what his view is, but if he wants to expound on this further, something very important worth saying is it actually really doesn't matter. There was a guy, and I wish I could remember because he's on the right. He really deserves credit for this, but he pointed out, I think it was a senator, and he said, look, it actually doesn't matter if the guy's on the left or the right. It doesn't matter in the slightest, because actually neither side, at least what we recognize as the legitimate parties of either side, neither condones violence. As soon as you're shooting at people, you're an extremist. So the extremist from the left is just as dangerous as the extremist from the right. Both sides have to counter that extremism. Both sides have to work together against extremism, and it's a problem everybody faces. Everybody can be the victim of an extremist. Everybody can be in a party that can have extremists, and every party's extremists all suck equally. I added the suck part, but that was essentially what he said. So I thought that was well put and worth thinking about. The left, for whatever disagreements they had with Charlie Kirk. And I'm sure there are some who wanted him dead. There were ones on the right who wanted him dead. We're going to talk about that. But the ones that would represent me, the ones that would represent any honest interlocutor, did not want to see him assassinated. So any thoughts?
Yeah, I think extremism should be battled no matter where it arises, and as soon as you become extreme, you're no longer a part of the main group by definition. So I actually personally don't particularly care if it was a left-wing extremist or right-wing extremist, whichever ideology they subscribe to. I don't care. They were an extremist that committed murder, premeditated murder at that. Where I start getting really concerned is the fact that there are people on the left and people on the right, mostly on the right now, I would say, that are trying to tag this person as an extremist of the other side, specifically so they can make the connection that this extremist isn't actually an extremist, but rather a mainstream member of said group, and they're trying to tar the entire other side with this. I see this way more from the right at the moment. I have seen this from the left as well, just not nearly as much. And that's very disturbing to me.
That is, and that's how you start pogroms. I mean, that's how you, what was it? Rosewood is an example. The town of Rosewood, but there was a second famous example. Town of Rosewood, black town in Jesus, I want to say Mississippi. I don't remember. My history's getting a little rough, but a black man said hi to a young white. Was this the one where she said hi? Wow, my history is getting. Yeah, I think he had said hi to her at a convenience store and hit on her, which was back then a very big no-no. And then she went and told her parents, not that he had hit on her, but that he had actually sexually assaulted her, which was not true. She died a few years ago, and that people tried to get interviews with her about the consequences of what she did, and all she would ever say was, look, I was 12 or 13 at the time. I didn't know. But what ended up happening was they decided to get a whole posse together and wipe out the nearest black town, which was the town of Rosewood. Because, well, if one black guy did it, obviously all black guys have to be punished for it. And unfortunately, we still are a tribal species, and we still think that way, and we still have to have active conversations and active engagement to combat what Darwin called the vestiges of our lowly natures. So I think that's a really spectacular point. So thank you for that. So what we're going to do today, we're going to talk about what we don't know about the Kirk assassination. Then we're going to talk some more about what we don't know about the Kirk assassination. Once we're done with that, we're going to talk even more about what we don't know about the Kirk assassination. And then if you feel like you know anything, let us know and we will debunk it for you. And then we'll all be on the same page. What?
Remember my stance on multiple hands?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of hands on this.
I was about to say, there are so many hands from pointing in so many directions, from so many directions, towards so many directions. I don't even know which way is up or down or left or right anymore.
So I've been going through channels that I respect to see what they say. And I have been a little surprised and dismayed by the number of conspiracy theories. So I said, in time, we're not going to engage in that. And it's like, here we are.
Now that you have prefaced the beginning of this at the risk of completely derailing your train of thought,
Please.
But now that you have prefaced that In Time tries very hard not to be a conspiracy theorist nut job site. The number of times you've had to rein me in from spouting off. I now have to give aluminum foil or tin foil, as it used to be called, warnings of how many rolls you'll need for this particular, and yet here we go.
This is going to be.
We're going to dive straight into conspiracy.
I think this is going to be a half a roll show because you're definitely going to need that half, but we're not going to make any actual claims. We're going to make a lot of
observations.
Yes, observations, and we're gonna do exactly what these. So I was watching these shows. I was getting really ticked off. I can't believe I found my track again, because they were getting into these conspiracy theories, and a lot of them were saying, "Look, I'm not saying I know the answer. What I'm saying is this looks weird to me." And I got really ticked. I'm like, that's a way of that's clickbait. And here's the reason it's clickbait. It's because you can just sit there and say, isn't it weird how the Twin Towers fell? I'm not saying that the Twin Towers were destroyed. I'm just saying it was weird how they fell. And I was just like, oh, go fuck off. And here we are doing a show where we're about to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover the very few things we seem to have down and can say that we know, which is very few things. And then we're going to talk about what dovetails with that, because there's a lot of hands. And you had said on the phone earlier, a lot of people pointing at each other. And one observation
Not just on the phone. I just said that too.
Yeah. One observation that was made was at first it really started looking like it was somebody on the right who had done this. Then it started really looking like it was somebody on the left. It was hard to see how he could swing so quickly, so fast, but it really started looking like it was somebody on the left. Now it's looking a bit more like it's probably a complicated person, which is kind of what I think Andrew was trying to say earlier, and I think is a very important thing to remember, which is none of us are parties, and all of us have beliefs that are kind of conservative, kind of liberal, and we may trend in one direction or another, but nobody's a monolith. And so it turns out that he may have been conservative in many ways. We do know he was actually pro-Second Amendment. This was not his gun, but we know that he was pro-Second Amendment. The evidence looks very strong at this point that he had a trans girlfriend. At one point, that claim was made without any evidence. That seems to have been backed up by this point. We may learn it's not true, but the evidence appears to me to be trending in that direction. Not that it matters. The other thing that somebody pointed out was Fox News has come out and said, why are the trans always adjacent to these kinds of things? And it's like, because they're adjacent to everything, because they're everywhere, whether you know it or not, because it's only recently that they've been able to kind of come out in society. But the trans person is the only one that's cooperating. And because the trans person is cooperating, they're getting blasted on Fox News as being involved in this. Holy fucking Christ. I'm sorry, that just
the complete tone deafness and lack of self-awareness of some of this shit. I already don't like Fox News, but I mean, this really pissed me off too. It's like, okay, can we go back to like the 1940s and 50s when they're like, why are blacks always adjacent to this? Why are they so, they're so involved in all of these crimes and all of these problems because they're always right there. We would not tolerate that today. Well, I mean, I guess maybe there are some that may cheer that, but yeah, it's like I thought we moved past this. Clearly not.
Yeah, it was staggering. The trans person's the only one that's cooperating, and they were thrown under the bus more than the shooter by Fox News. I am not kidding. That and the grandma, which I just think is hilarious, and I do get it. They called up the grandma, tried to get a sound clip from grandma. They're like, okay, your grandson shot and killed Charlie Kirk. And this is what they said. I don't even think they said allegedly. I'm not saying that. I'm going to say allegedly. But at any rate, they said, this is what your grandson did. What do you think? And her reply was, oh, I didn't know we had any Democrats in the family. Not, he did what? He killed who? What? It was, we have Democrats in the family? I don't know why. I just like that. I probably shouldn't. I'm going to hell. Oh dear.
Well,
all right.
Well, we already knew that.
Yeah, that's true. Time. We've all known that for quite some time. So, what are the potential parties involved? The most obvious and the one that everyone sort of jumped to was the same one with the original assassination attempt on Trump, and I think with the second, if I recall, which is it's somebody on the left, somebody in the opposing party. And the reality is that's true a lot less often than you would think. It certainly wasn't true last time. It was an old school conservative who felt that Trump had betrayed the party and deserved to die for that. That's who it was in the last assassination attempt. And the disappointment on the right that they couldn't blame the left for it was palpable, and it was unfortunate. And if it turns out that they can say, oh, it's the left, and Trump is already saying Antifa, I'm going to shut down all left-leaning universities, which is 90% of the universities. And so it's very nerve-wracking what he's saying he's going to use this for, and people are comparing this to the Reichstag fire. Commander Macmillan compared this more to, what's his name? I can't believe I've forgotten his name. Someone in the live chat will probably remember it, but a German SS kid who wasn't particularly well liked, but got into a knife fight with a bunch of communists, stabbed, killed, and was elevated to demagoguery, the sense of hero, so that they had something to fight for and something to believe in. You could argue the same thing was done with George Washington. Regardless, at any rate. So the first potential is that this guy is from somewhere on the left, was radicalized, and thought that this was a good thing to do. Another possibility, he was trying to impress Jodie Foster. And I say that half tongue-in-cheek, that, somebody shot Ronald Reagan trying to impress Jodie Foster. That's why he did it. He was schizophrenic. He thought he was in a relationship with Jodie Foster. He thought she had broken up with him, and she thought that the best way to fix the relationship was to impress her by shooting and killing Ronald Reagan. He shot Ronald Reagan. He was put in a mental hospital for obvious reasons. He had never met Jodie Foster. Now, obviously, I'm not, this guy could just be a lunatic, completely unhinged. Or he could be on the right. Now, why would somebody on the right do it? Well, you could ask that of the last guy on the right who tried to kill Donald Trump. There are a couple of reasons. There are some on the right who feel betrayed and who feel that betrayal allows them to retaliate violently, or that they are compelled to because Trump is violating the Constitution so much, or whatnot. And there are some on the further right, which we're going to get to, that actually really despised Charlie Kirk. And that was something, and it was the Groper that's already been brought up in the live chat, and that's something that a lot of people don't realize, and there have been occasional references to by this guy. It doesn't mean, we don't have enough to know. We don't have enough to know. He was dating a trans person. That reduces, in my view at least, the chances that he was hardcore on the right. But having said that, we're all unique people. Dick Cheney finally kind of came out and said it was okay to be gay. We know why he said that. One of his daughters is gay.
Couldn't have anything. I was just about to say.
Yeah, that's how you would have said that. Sorry. Yeah. His daughter. But it took a while for him to get there, and he's still really staunch conservative on everything else. So, in the end, it just because this guy there's some evidence that shows hard right on this guy, some evidence that shows at least pretty decent on the left. So we got no idea. He didn't leave a manifesto that we know of. He's not cooperating with police. Yep. So I don't know. Does it sound like we got a good layout of what we do and don't know and who the usual suspects are in this case?
So far, yeah. I mean, the most defining factor is what we don't know.
Yeah.
But wait, it gets weirder.
It gets a lot weirder. It gets weird. So before we get into that, I do want to get into the Groper just slightly. So Nick Fuentes, who's somebody we haven't spoken a lot about on this show, and Kirk apparently really detested each other, which I did not know. Now, they were originally very much on the same team. Nick Fuentes went harder right than Kirk, and apparently started about a year ago, maybe two, a campaign to try to humiliate Kirk and to try to get him even further to the right and sort of expose the fact that he wasn't even really on the right and make him look bad and all. So he would actually send interlopers into Kirk's university events like the one that he was doing here, because he would open mic and just chat with anybody, and he would have people come in, and apparently sometimes Kirk really, knocked these people on their asses, and sometimes they really threw Kirk for a loop. So, but it was an extraordinarily contentious relationship, and ended up being called the Groper Wars. We also know that this kid was very much into gaming. The shell casings we're going to talk about, but the references, some of them seem to come from the left, but they also came from games. So the problem is, just because you know one context of a specific thing doesn't mean that there aren't other contexts. And some of these appeared to have multiple contexts, which confuses stuff even more. And then we get to the really confusing stuff. So it turns out that and Nick Fuentes has come out and said that he condemns all violence. Anybody who does any violence in his name is excommunicado from his group, from anything to have to do with him. He wants nothing to do with violence. And same thing with anybody on the other side. Whether the other side means the left or means Charlie Kirk was not clarified, but a number of people took a look at that and said, and the reports are that Fuentes is concerned that it was someone that what's the guy's name? Robinson is the alleged killer's name. That Robinson is in fact a Groper. There is some very scant evidence to look at and say, okay, I could see how you could connect the dots, but you got to connect the dots. It's not. He doesn't hold up a sign saying I'm a Groper. So there's and you got to connect the dots for the left. It's a mess. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, it's a mess. This is a pile of cooked spaghetti in a lump on the floor. Good luck. I mean, this is so far this is the quintessential Gordian knot.
Yes.
I freaking hell, it's.
And it reminds me of only one other thing, and it reminded you of this too, but for another reason. It reminds me of the JFK assassination. One of the big reasons it reminds me of the JFK assassination is usually an assassin will have a manifesto and will have a clear-cut, this is who I am, and this is why I did it. And the reason is because they are trying to affect some kind of political change. With Luigi, we know why he assassinated the head of United Healthcare. We often know pretty, and again, they unfortunately with mass shooters, usually the same thing. You know pretty quickly how and why. When Oswald was taken into custody, he kept his mouth shut. He would not talk about it except to say he was a patsy and he was not involved. That was all he'd say, and then he got shot and killed, which is why I'm sitting there going like, okay, the last time I saw this, and I wasn't around for the JFK, but I read history. The last time I saw this was JFK, and the guy who kept his mouth shut and didn't say anything ended up dead reasonably quickly in custody. And you had thought it also, I think you had said it reminded you of JFK as well.
Yeah, it absolutely does, because we have inconsistencies and just galore. Inconsistencies and conveniences galore. And it's starting to add up to the same kinds of things that we saw with the with JFK.
And thank you for that, Titan. Allegedly, I'm usually better about that. So thank you for that, Luigi. Luigi is, of course, innocent until proven guilty, and he has pled not guilty. And in fact, in other news, the terrorism charges against him were thrown out, which I think was probably wise. I don't think those were sustainable. No matter what, I don't think those were sustainable. I understand the argument. Again, you could draw the lines to terrorism, but if what he did was terrorism, again, then a lot of acts become it's a slippery slope. Anyways, all right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go over we've already gone over some of the things we know. We know he left a goodbye note on Discord. We know what it was. We are reasonably accurate in that reporting, but we're not 100%, and we'll tell you why. There's a few other pieces of information that we're going to report that in theory is 100% accurate, and we are starting to suspect, and we're just going to go into it, and it just doesn't make any sense to us. We'll let you now. Like I said, I was looking at a channel that was covering this, and they had the suspect who was limping because he had the rifle along his leg. And they showed him at one point limping and going down the stairs. At another point, he was not. That knee appeared to be bent for him to walk. So they'd say he doesn't really have the rifle. It's all fake. Except, and I was watching this channel, if you looked, the railing was on the other side for that other photo. The railing was on the other side. The photo had been flipped horizontally. And if you looked, the same leg was now the other side leg, and it was still stiff. So it was just going through this quickly and said, he just bent his right leg. No, he didn't. He's still going, and you can tell it's this, he hasn't rounded on the other side of the stairs, same camera, for whatever reason, it was, the photo was, and it's easy to do. I work in Photoshop, you do that all the time. So, I've been hearing all these things, and it's like conspiracy, oh no. Now, I am a JFK conspiracy theorist, and the reason I am is the easiest reason to explain is this. What a lot of people don't know, Oswald was, I think he was a Marine, right? Was he a Marine, or was he, I think he was Marine. Oh, I can't hear you.
Sorry, I'm like, you asked me that, I'm like, I'm racking my brain. He was in the military.
He was in the military. I think he was in the Marines. He was a radar operator. And then he defects to Russia. This is an act of treason against the United States. It was so astonishing that anybody could defect to Russia that this made headline news. It made the head of the New York Times, Harvey Lee Oswald. That was the first anyone heard of Oswald, not the assassination, but his defecting to Russia. Goes to Russia. He is treated like a rock star because he's defected from America, but they insist on getting secrets from him. That's the only way they'd accept it. Presumably he gives those secrets. Nobody knows for certain, but Ed Powers, I think his name was Ed Powers, Captain Powers had his U-2 shot down. It was the first time they successfully shot down a U-2 flight over Russia. You couldn't shoot them down because nobody knew what altitude they flew at, except a radar operator might know. And Powers was specifically asked, did Oswald have sufficient information to help the Russians shoot down your plane? He said yes. There's a newspaper interview with him about this. So, I mean, Oswald was already a household name for betraying the United States and ostensibly handing U-2 secrets to Russia. Then he gets tired of being in Russia, comes back, gets issued a brand new passport because the old one had been destroyed when he renounced his U.S. citizenship, and then gets a job spouting socialist propaganda in New Orleans. Now, the House Select Committee on Assassinations was able to find his paymaster at the FBI. So he clearly worked for the FBI. He had to be working for the CIA. He had to be working for intelligence agencies, or else he'd have been shackled, tried, and probably hanged as soon as he came back. And then he gets involved in the assassination. Now, all the details of how and why, long story, I'm not going to get into, but that's already like, you take a look at that, and it's like something has to be up. So that's sort of the feeling I get. It sounds like that's the feeling you're getting when we look at this. It doesn't feel right.
It's further exacerbated by the blatant fabrications to try and justify people's. Actually, I think there's just chaos sowers out there that are trying to sow chaos. They're putting out blatantly incorrect things, demonstrably false things. Unfortunately, they get spread like wildfire. Where 30 seconds later they go, "Oh, my bad. This was incorrect. We were wrong." But it's too late. 2.3 million people have already shared this, and it's blatantly false, completely made up. And so you have a huge amount of just blatantly false stuff being thrown around that has zero evidence for support, and then many times we can actually prove that this was completely fabricated. The classic one that comes, I say classic like this was ancient. The biggest one that comes to mind immediately is the Trump shirt. Completely fabricated AI manipulation of the photo. And we've got so much of that going on, and it's being shared so fast, that whole statement about how lies will make its way around the world while the truth is still putting its shoes on. So you've got that exacerbating the entire thing. The fact that the official information that is coming out is sometimes contradictory or confused, doesn't make a lot of sense, and there can be genuinely legitimate reasons for why some of that is happening, but it's even worse in this particular case.
Yeah, and again, it's hot potato. Nobody wants to be the party that is sort of like, he's on the right, I'm telling you, he's got to be on the right. No, he's on the left. Oh, and it's just every party wants him to be on the other one. We did get a super chat that I didn't get to. I can mathematically prove Siam does not exist. That was one of the interesting things about being the king of Siam. You see, I am the king of Siam, but there have been so many assassination attempts on me being the king of Siam that my family had to make it pretend that Siam was becoming Thailand so that I could reign under. I believe me, I had this whole thing down pat, actually proving that I wasn't the king of Siam, as in proving a negative. I got into a lot of it. I got into my arguing, my philosophy days. That was $2 sinister.
You're the king of Siam. You've outlawed mathematics.
That's it. Xander's got it. Math is hereby outlawed. Nice try, Sinister Porpoise. Thank you for the super chat. We appreciate it. All right. So here's what we're going to do. Let's talk about the state of the government, at least the FBI, briefly. Kash Patel is an absolute brilliant leader if you're looking for bats in a belfry. Anything short of that, and probably not your guy, besides the fairy tale book about Donald Trump and what was the name of the witch in the book? Somebody's going to... what was the name of the queen Kash Patel's actually it was a children's book. So Kash Patel published a children's book, The Brave Plot Against the King. It was about Queen Hillary and her horrible plot against Trump and his whole family. This is a real book. You can look this up. It's like illustrated. It's a children's book. I thought it wasn't just, it was Hillary the Terrible. Who was it? Hillary the Horrible? I forget. Anyways, this guy's, and if you look into, and we've got on our Discord a history of Kash Patel, which is very shady, unfortunately. And he doesn't have, listen, he didn't come up through law enforcement. So what he's doing as the head of the FBI, I don't know. It looks like the right is starting to figure out that maybe just putting in people for loyalty's sake, and he is loyal. I mean, he wrote a children's book about Trump. But just because he's loyal doesn't mean he's qualified, and he's fired all of the really qualified people, including the field director in Utah, which they tried to hire back for this case, and her and her deputy, and they both said no. They don't want to work for an FBI that's just going to fire them because of who they voted for, or again. And he says, "Well, I haven't fired people just because they worked on the Trump case." Bullshit! As soon as the first thing he did was ask his own deputy to compile a list of every agent at every level and every employee, including secretaries, who worked on any of the prosecutions of Donald J. Trump, all of which were legit. In fact, a jury of his peers convicted him on 34 fraud counts. It was a jury of his peers. He wasn't convicted by leftists or by the judge or even by the prosecutor. He was convicted by a jury, which he had a hand in selecting. But anybody who helped with that case has been fired from the FBI. So, or at least there's been a process of removing them from the FBI. So the FBI, the thinking is it's crippled. Now, we've talked about Social Security before, and we've talked about our belief that Social Security and much of the social welfare in this country has been crippled. We expected to see the signs of that sooner. We haven't. So either we were wrong, or it's taking longer than we expected. I think it's taking longer than we expected, but I think the jobs reports and the sudden crashes that we're seeing are part of that and part of the tariffs. Having said all that, the FBI does not appear to be in any real position to conduct an investigation. And while Kash Patel's been doing victory laps for having caught the guy, the reality is his father, he confessed to his father, and his father helped him turn himself in. Now, Kash Patel has responded, yeah, because we released the photos. Well, that's what you do when a video camera records it. Congratulations, but this wasn't the most impressive field work I've ever seen. They didn't find the guy. This wasn't them hunting the evidence down and yada, yada, yada. So, at any rate, what we're going to do is we're going to go over what I'm going to call the indictment. It is not an indictment, but it is what most of us would call an indictment. So in general, when somebody, the state believes that somebody is guilty of a crime, they convene a grand jury. The grand jury decides whether or not there is probable cause, and they really have to, what they really are looking for is there a chance that this case could win? If the answer is yes, they hand that down, person gets indicted, and you have a trial. That's also how it works at the federal level. A couple of states, Utah included, doesn't do that. It's determined by a judge. The judge determines if there's probable cause. If he decides there is, you are then charged with the crime. It's roughly the same process. I'm going to use the word indictment. It is not an indictment, and it is, technically speaking, I forget what they call it. It's a very long name. I don't even remember. But it's the same thing as an indictment, except instead of using a grand jury that's secret, they have a judge. He has been charged. Same thing as being indicted. He has now been charged. He is being held without bail. His name is Tyler James Robinson. He is suspected in the murder of Charlie Kirk. And we're going to go over the indictment. That's what I'm going to call it. I don't have the bandwidth to change the name. We're going to go over the indictment, which, as indictments have a tendency to do, gives enough evidence to clear the bar that they could at least get the charges brought. They don't have to make the case that he's guilty, just that there's enough evidence that he might be guilty that they should bring the charges. That's the bar in this case. We are going to read that together. It's about 10 pages, but it starts, we're going to skip most of the pages and stay on the ones that start to get a little weird. So here we go. Now, you know what? I'm thinking that may be kind of small, so I can probably, I doubt anybody can read that. So let me see if I can make that a little bigger for all of you. Let's see. There you go. Probably, I assume everybody can read that. And if anybody has any significant complaints in the live chat, please let 𝐒𝐨𝐻𝐿𝐴 know, and we'll blame him. So, this is Again, what I'm for lack of for brevity, just going to call an indictment. It is the state of Utah versus it's the county attorney versus Tyler James Robinson. Now, they have a few counts here. Count 1, aggravated murder. This is a capital felony, and we've been told they are going to be seeking the death penalty. So it's a capital penalty because it's aggravated murder, and you can see the notice here below. Actually, yeah. Okay, perfect. Why it's aggravated? Because it was targeted, and because there were children present during the violence, means that it's an aggravated murder, meaning that it's death penalty is applicable. Count 2, felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury. I mean, you'd think murder would, but that's just me. States do this all the time. I'm just nitpicking. I'm just like, you already got him. If you've got a count on murder, the reason they do this is because if they can't end up getting him on count 1 for some technicality, they get him on count 2. Let's say, in fact, Xander is going to talk to us probably in a little bit about that because he knows a lot more about ballistics and weapons than I do. You know, if the bullet actually didn't immediately hit him or hit, a vest or hit something else, and then he was indirectly, Spaulding or anything like that, maybe they don't get him on murder on a technicality, but they can get him on count 2. So there's count 2. Just a weaker version of count 1. Count 3, obstruction of justice. This is an interesting one. I'm a little surprised they included this in here. This was basically because he told people, because he hid the firearm. So we're going to talk about that. He hid the weapon, and so obstruction of justice. Another count of obstruction of justice. This is because he told the roommate, which at this point he seems to have. No, he was definitely The evidence is he was in an intimate relationship with his roommate. He told his roommate he changed clothing, and then tampering with a witness is 5. That's where he told his roommate to not cooperate. And then number 6 is he told his roommate to withhold certain chats and texts that they had. Count 7, violent offenses committed in the presence of a child. Again, it's sort of like, if he gets convicted of murder, what do you care about count 7? It sounds like kind of a waste, and it feels silly. But it's possible, and it happens actually all the time, that, you don't get somebody on the higher count, but somehow you get them on the lower count. So they're throwing in a lot of stuff. It also gives them room to negotiate. They can say, tell you what, how about... we'll take death penalty off the table. You plead guilty to count 2. So count 2 is a felony discharge of a firearm. So you plead guilty to count 2. You get life in prison. There you go. So the more of this that they have here, the more they can work. Okay, probable cause statement.
Notice.
Yes, please.
Also notice the victim targeting enhancements. They're alleging that he shot Kirk because of his political views. So they're alleging that this was politically motivated. So,
and this brings up the other point, which is he was in a group Discord, and apparently he really cared about these people. We know he was in at least some gamer Discords. We know he used gamer language, which we're going to talk about. We know he was steeped in gamer culture. We know this from multiple sources. We have his final communication with that Discord group, but we don't know the nature of the group. It might have been a gaming group. It might have been what is it? Groyer group. Groper, thank you. It might have been a LGBTQ group. We have no idea. We don't know, and they've been really tight-lipped about it. Now, one of the things they've said is the reason we're being tight-lipped about this is because we don't want to poison the jury pool. And while I congratulate them on that mentality, and I think that that's actually the proper mentality, and I think that DAs tend to be a little too open with public information. Nonetheless, it's something that presumably we're going to find out anyway. People are going to talk about anyway. The people in that group are going to either out themselves or go talk to Fox News or something. And there's something to be said for nipping it in the bud by saying what kind of group it was. But they've decided against that. I do understand the reasoning, but that also gets to why I start to say, okay, Utah's conservative, so maybe they're being extra cautious with not messing with the jury pool. But I'm also just sort of wondering, like, okay, how do they understand the language? Because the other thing was too, they had said that there was trans writings on the bullets, and my understanding is that got cleared up by TRAN is a stamp I think that a certain manufacturer puts on their bullets and was put on these casings, but it was put on by the manufacturer. And the U.S. government didn't know that. At least the people doing the investigation didn't know that initially. Again, that's my understanding. I could be wrong, but if that's true, that they couldn't tell the difference between what he had engraved onto the bullets and what came on from the manufacturer, that's a terrifying degradation of the FBI's investigative abilities. All right, probable cause statement. So again, they are seeking probable cause. That's the bar just to get an indictment or to get charges brought. So they said that his DNA was on the rifle. He switched clothing, told his lover or roommate to delete incriminating texts. Yeah, the shooting point. The shooting, Turning Point USA. Charlie Kirk, the event at UVU. Okay, UVU. So everyone calls it UVU. That's just worth remembering. Kirk seated him.
Yeah, it's Utah Valley University.
Yeah. Yeah. 160 yards. Okay, so this one's 160 yards away. So we've had 180 was I heard the official. I've heard 130. Now I've heard 160. So apparently we still don't know. But okay, this is what the police are saying. So this I would consider the best source under most circumstances. He knelt on the gravel. Okay. They've retained footage after a short time. It ran across the northwest. The discovery led to a review of surveillance footage. Throughout the footage, the suspect keeps his head down. This is what we've seen, the unusual gait. He's got the rifle along his leg. Camera captures the suspect as he runs across the roof after the shooting. Carrying an item which is consistent with a rifle. I've gone over this footage very carefully, and I concur. The suspect is then seen climbing down from the roof. He appears to drop the item he was carrying as he hits the ground. That is not quite how it happens, from what I can tell. In fact, let's take a look at the footage really quickly. I could have sworn I must have, you know what? It looks like the footage didn't get up. So let me grab that real quick. So that is, of course it's going to give me a hard time. Let me try one more time to get this, and if I can't get it, okay. No, I don't seem to have. I thought, you know what? I think I know why. Here we go. Yep. Okay, now I got the footage. This is that footage. So you're going to see them in a second, and they are kind enough to zoom in, coming in on the left off the roof. This is immediately after the shooting. Come on. There we go. There he is. He's behind that little block there. There he goes. Okay, now he appears to be holding something that is rifle-shaped and something else. He's holding two things. Maybe he's holding his backpack separately. There's the rifle-shaped item. He actually still has that in his right hand. Boom. He's still holding on to one thing, dropped something else, picks up the something else, but he still appears to be holding on to what strikes me as being the rifle. There's been arguments that at one point law enforcement appears to have said that he had disassembled it, had it in his backpack. He's holding it in his right hand right then and there as he's dangling, at least from my zooming in on the photo. It looks like he's got it wrapped in something. It's black. It looks like it's in a carrying case of some kind. Yeah, you can see it's long and big. It's not his backpack. He does drop something in addition to it. Something they seem to have in his... Yep, there you go. He drops something else, picks that, and goes. All right, we're going to see another angle of this in just a second. Now, whatever it is, it appears to be wrapped in something, and I imagine... they talk about it being wrapped in a towel. That's presumably how he got so far without somebody, because there are a few people seeing him. But by this time, he's way on the other side of the campus. Many of these cars leaving. The people maybe don't even know that anything happened. All right, so that's the footage that they're talking about. And let's bring this back up. On the cartridges, according to the state of Utah, on the fired cartridge, no 𝐒𝐸𝐵𝐿𝐷, which is a reference to, it's an trans slur or phrase to referencing noticing somebody's bulge. OWO, what's that? The second cartridge said, "Hey fascist, catch," with arrow symbols. This has been interpreted by a lot of people to be, of course, anti-fascist and therefore on the left, except plenty of people. Xandring, do you consider yourself on the right or the left?
If I had to choose one, I would be slightly on the right.
All right. Are you pro-fascist or anti-fascist?
I am anti-fascist.
Okay, you can be on the right and be anti-fascist. Not all right people on the right are. You can be on the left and not be a socialist. You can be on the left and not be a Maoist. You can be on the left and not be, I mean, hey, fascist, catch. Yes, it is the vast majority of people calling Trump a fascist is on the left. Absolutely. So that's true, but it's not the only people who think he's a fascist. And, if somebody's willing to shoot him, they may be willing to give an honest impression that somebody on the right might be less inclined to do. But having said all that, it turns out, hey, fascist, catch, somehow, in a way that I do not understand, refers to the game Helldivers 2. Now, in Helldivers 2, there is a code where you hit the arrow keys in a very specific way. You get a grenade, which can kill just about anything. It's considered that this grenade, essentially, once you get it, that's it, game over. You can just kill whatever you want to. And there's a specific set of arrow keys to get that. It turns out that the hey fascist catch actually is a phrase from Helldivers 2, as are the arrow symbols. They are the correct arrows used to get the Uber grenade that you can use in the game. So, while again, at first glance, hey, fascist catch, I can see why people may say, oh, gee, it's got to be someone on the left. This is why we have to slow down and take a look. The fact that it was with this Helldivers 2, and this is, by the way, not known. I'm a gamer, but I'm not like an avid gamer. I've played every Borderlands. I'm working my way through Borderlands 4 right now. I love games, but and I've known Helldivers for a while. I've always wanted to get into it. Never had the time. I'm a busy guy. But I didn't know any of this. So you had to be really steeped in gamer culture to be aware of this. The same with the Bella Ciao, which, as it turns out, is an important scene in Far Cry 6, which is the latest version of Far Cry, if I recall. I'm well aware with the franchise. Again, I haven't played it, but I know how it works, and I know the franchise. And apparently there was an optional DLC you could get that included a scene where that particular song was actually extraordinarily important. So it is possible he was referencing this as a anti-fascist song from the 40s, or from a gamer. Both the second and third cartridge could be referencing either. There's no way to know, which is why it would help to know a little more about the Discord he was in. Then again, since I'm not on the jury, there's an argument to be made. It's none of my business. Fourth cartridge. If you read this, you are gay. LMAO. This is ableist language, and not a lot of people on the left that I'm aware of would say something like this. And that's something that, by the way, in general, you'd have to be a little more on the left to understand why this would be problematic to write on a cartridge, even as a joke. So, again, the guy may have been more complex than just left or right. Any thoughts on the cartridges so far?
No idea.
Okay.
I mean, it's like you have multiple, or at least two different explanations for a lot of the stuff that's put on there, and yeah, I don't. Being the age that I grew up, where some of those words are used just as generalized slurs, not necessarily meant that you are actually that, like saying you're gay. Just meant you're more or less you're lame. So that's my generational thing. So when I read something like that, it reads a little bit differently than somebody who is this person's age. So
that's a really good point. Yeah, he's 22 is the other thing we got to remember. So we'll get to that in a second. And then I also want to quickly, Jester super chatted for an infinity amount. Thank you, Jester. We really appreciate that. That's the most we've ever had on a super chat. Thank you for that. Math is outlawed. You can't calculate the value of this super chat. Ha ha! I have math on my side and am therefore more powerful than you. Thank you again for your infinity-powered super chat. Sinister Porpoise, $5.12. When math is outlawed, only outlaws will do math. Yeah. Fair enough. And we get infinity super chats. Let's hope that YouTube recognizes that one. I'm not optimistic. Gaming with Robin. If you want a tour in Helldivers, I can show you around. Oh, I've been wanting to play it for a little while. Bella Ciao has also been appropriated by fascists in both Spain. That's right. And in Nick Fuentes' and that's the other thing. Bregwin points out Nick Fuentes' chat as almost a version of counter signaling have adopted Bella Ciao. It's in some ways the way the N-word gets counter-signaled. It's there's another one that's counter-signaled. It's not just that we're allowed to use it but it's another one is Obamacare. The people who came up with the term Obamacare was the right. It was Republicans. That was a slur against that. And Obama was like, I love the name. And he took it. And he's just like, okay, we're going to call it Obamacare from now on because that's what the Republicans are calling it. So Nick Fuentes did adopt Bella Ciao as almost a rallying cry. Like, hey, if you want to call us fascists, here we are. And every group, by the way, does this. A lot of groups, any group that gets targeted by other groups will find a way to counter signal with those targets. It's just what we do. And it can be clever. So at any rate, so now we're stuck once again where we don't know what any of this means. When Luigi allegedly murdered the head of United Healthcare, there was a lot of evidence that led us to understand the hows and the whys. And by the way, it was more complex than I was denied coverage, ergo. It was significantly more it was a capitalist message. But that notwithstanding, as complex as we got it. He was basically indicting the healthcare system and the legal system. Okay. I've got no idea yet. You'd think the Hey Fascist catch would do it. It gets weirder. Washington County investigation, September 11th. He went with his parents and a family friend to turn himself in. Okay. That's a little weird. And I say that because usually assassins like this, and again, he's an assassin, are caught or killed. It's very rare they turn themselves in. In most cases where somebody commits a shooting of any kind, whether it's an assassination or anything like that, and they turn themselves in, usually there's a mental health issue involved. So it's somebody who will later claim, rightly or wrongly, that they acted as a result of a mental health issue, PTSD, schizophrenia, whatever they're going to use. They deeply regret their actions and are now turning themselves in. Now, that's not entirely what he claims here, but that's the history of that kind of behavior. It's very rare that someone turns themselves in who's a political assassin. Or again, any kind of assassin. And this appears to be political, but it just gets weirder. Okay. His mother explained that over the last year or so, he had become more political and started to lean more to the left. Now, what's interesting is every report that I've seen is his mother did say that he was more political, but not necessarily to the left, except on one issue, which was gay and trans rights. Becoming more gay and trans rights oriented. Now, last Halloween, he had a Trump costume, and it didn't look, from what I could tell, as it was derogatory. It looked like it was, here's my hero. Now, he's 21 years old last year, so he's 21 years old going around in a Halloween costume. That's not that unusual, but it's still, all right. So, hold on, what I'm going to do is move, oh, thank you very much for that, Titan. In fact, I have a copy of it. Let me make sure I've got a copy of it. Thank you. I'm going to change subjects slightly. I should have said this earlier, and I had forgotten about this. I am going to stand by my statement. I think there is nuance, but I'm going to stand by that for the most, not for the most part. You cannot judge an entire organization or group by by radicals from that side, as long as that group acknowledges that they're radicals. If they're the average of the group, you can judge the entire group. I judge Al-Qaeda by what Al-Qaeda does, not by what their radicals do. It's a terrorist organization. I don't judge the Muslim sitting next to me by what Al-Qaeda does. That notwithstanding, there was a study done by the Department of Justice on mass shootings. Oh, and that's not the study. I copied the study. Number of terrorist attacks, plots by perpetrator orientation from 1994 to 2019. Now, the Department of Justice did this study in an effort to elucidate where attacks were coming from. And the findings were that, in general, many more of the attackers were from the right wing. So it breaks down, it has religious different than left wing and right wing, which is interesting because I think it makes it a little difficult to tell, is the KKK religious or is it right wing? I don't know.
Or is it ethno-nationalist?
Ethno-nationalist, and there's another one. So I'd like to know more about this study. I'd like to know how it was done. I'm not going to know the reason. Actually, I can, because it's still on the Wayback Machine, but you have to find it in the Wayback Machine because the Department of Justice has taken this study down. They're the ones who commissioned it. They participated in it. And it was up on the DOJ's website, and they took it down. When did they take it down? They took it down recently. Let's see. They took it down September 12th. On September 12th, they took down the study. Now, a number of things have been vanishing off of government websites that study is now among them. You can still find it on the Wayback Machine, which is where I found the chart, and I do have a copy of the entire study. I've got a PDF of it, and we'll put it in the Discord. They didn't explain why they took it down. They didn't sit there and say, we found better evidence. We believe that this study is flawed for X, Y, or Z reason. They just took it down. I can guess... Well, I'm not going to. At any rate, let me just make sure I'm not missing something. 𝐒𝐸, Time Magazine had from the 𝐒𝐸 Institute a similar study. And let me, before I try to, yeah, that's what I thought. And I mean, again, this isn't to say, what I'd really like to do is emphasize what 𝐒𝐸𝐿𝐼𝐶𝐴ndering was saying at the beginning, which is we're all individuals, and the if I recall, the terrorist organization that does the most damage in the world to civilized infrastructure is Greenpeace, which is a left-wing organization. So they're considered the largest terrorist organization in the world, or at least were last I checked. You know, but that's in some ways to sort of be expected for any number of reasons. Right wing is going to, I mean, on the left, they don't like to have guns, so instantly, you know, they might be guilty of a whole bunch of shit, but when it comes to murders, anyways, Ideology of Political Murders, this was by the 𝐒𝐸 Institute, which is a right-wing, if I recall, 𝐒𝐸 is a right-wing organization, and Time Magazine. I should have put this out sooner, but Titan reminded me now, and I'd forget if I didn't put that out. It's entirely, and I've said from the beginning, it's entirely possible, the guys on the left, it's entirely possible. But jumping to the conclusion, and what we saw, we're going to derail for 1 second because we're there anyway, and I know this was bothering you, 𝐶𝐴ndering. What we saw early on, everybody was like, Civil War, this was the left, this was the left. And from day one, I said, it's entirely possible it was the left. But that's not actually how these usually go. It wasn't how the assassination attempt on Trump went. But it can absolutely happen. And when it's somebody on the left, it doesn't speak for the left. And when it's somebody on the right, it doesn't speak for somebody on the right. It's a person, not a party. You can judge a party by the words, the dog whistles, the things that they do, yes, and the subtext of it. But you can't judge an ideology based on what outliers that are condemned by that very ideology do. At any rate, the good news is the rhetoric seems to have gone down. The Civil War seems to be going down. But that now both sides are confused. People on the right are sitting there going, is he on the right? Did you know him? I didn't know him. I did. And then people on the left are like, look, if he was left, he would not have said that. And you know, okay, you know, maybe he's got but if he's room, and then we haven't gotten to close of what in my view is the weirdest part. Any thoughts on all of that shit? Yeah. Before
we keep using the term, oh wait, it gets weirder, or this is the weirdest part. And interestingly, weird is one of those words that doesn't really have degrees in official English, quote unquote, rules. Something is either weird or it isn't. Weirder, weirdest, those aren't really supposed to be things. Of course,
well, that's the most weird thing that's the most weird thing anyone's ever told me.
Exactly. So yeah, it's bizarre. I mean, I wish, well, for many reasons, I wish this were a bad book review that we were doing, because at least then it should make sense.
Yeah. All right. So let me bring back the and that was way out of, that should have been an hour ago in this entire discussion. When we were talking about it, I didn't have anything handy on it, and I moved on, and Titan brought that back up. But the fact is, there's this, you know, there's reasons to say, look, if we're just going to look at the numbers statistically, it was probably somebody on the right. But what bugs me is the idea that now, if it's somebody on the left, They now they and people of Trump keeps saying they're attacking us, and a lot of people on the left are saying, please list who is they and describe these attacks. It certainly isn't the one who shot him, and they don't have an answer. I can say who they are. The they is not. It's shy of far right, but it's definitely right of center right. And it's a group of people who are looking for any excuse to weaponize and to further agitate the discourse between the left and the right. And I think they're doing that as a means for a power grab. And that's what I see Trump already doing. When Trump is Trump sent troops to Los Angeles, and there was a whole bunch of, I read a thread on X, and all these people are going like, well, that's the left for you. You have to fight them to help them. It's like, we're trying to help them. Don't they understand that? And it's like, don't you understand? We don't see it as help. And we see this as a power grab. And there was no way to have that conversation. There was absolutely no way to have that conversation. Because that help was going to be enforced on LA, whether they wanted it or not. And, All right. This is where it gets really weird. All right. Police interviewed Robin's roommate, a biological male who was, the only reason to say he was a biological male was if there was something else. In this case, the multiple sources have reported, and we believe it's likely accurate, that it was a male in some stage of transition. But we don't know. Was involved in a romantic relationship with Robbins. The roommate told the police that the roommate received messages after the shooting on September 10th. Okay, on September 10th, the roommate received a text message from Robbins which said, "Drop what you're doing, look under my keyboard." The roommate looked under the keyboard and it found a note that said, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." All right. I don't understand. I don't understand that. Was at this point, maybe he was just a 22-year-old, so he's not very bright. Was he planning on not returning and telling the roommate in person? If so, why was... this was an awfully short note. This note alone makes no sense to me, and it's, again, just the beginning. Any thoughts on this? There's no... And by the way, folks, first of all, it's policy around here to ask 𝐒𝐸𝐻𝐸 a question and then cut him off before he can answer. And second of all, like I said, I saw a show that I really liked, and in my view, they screwed up the video. They were making they were like, this is weird, I don't understand it. And I was just like, it makes perfect sense to me. So if this makes sense to you, put it in the live chat, put it in a comment, let us know what you think. This is already weird to me, and it's gonna get weirder. But I guess I could see a 22-year-old doing it, but again, it's gonna get weirder. So 𝐒𝐸𝐻𝐸, thoughts?
Yeah, buckle up, because this is bizarre.
Okay. And I don't have the live chat right now. I'm going to have to get it back. But okay. After reading the note, the roommate replied, "What? You're joking." So this appears to be a text on phone. This does not appear to be Discord. I'd like to know. I noted that this doesn't tell us what medium they were using. It appears to be a phone. So I'm going to assume that these were DM.
Something like a messenger app.
Yes. So I'm going to assume it was some sort of DM app, direct messaging app, not Discord, but some kind of direct messaging app. It could actually be DMs on Discord, but in that case, they're not in a room, and it's a professional app, is going to be my assumption. Let's move forward. I'm still okay, my love. Yeah.
Also, I'd like to point out that not only do not tell you the source of these messages, they don't give you any timestamps, any date stamps,
yes,
nothing. It's assumed, and we can only assume, that these are given in order, but we don't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, the lack of timestamps is troubling. They appear to have transcribed it. I assume they transcribed it as accurately as possible, which would include the typos. We'll get into that. So Robinson, now this is weird. He's just committed an assassination. He's just had his roommate slash lover look at the note. I'm still okay, my love, but I'm stuck in Orem, which is a town in Utah that he was apparently trapped in for a brief time. It is not capitalized. A app may or may not know to capitalize that. For a little while longer yet. Okay, it sounds like Shakespeare, but okay. Or an attempt at Shakespeare. Shouldn't be long till I can come home, but I gotta grab my rifle still. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I'm sorry to involve you. Okay. Now, again, gamers tend to shorten things. It's called apocryphation in language. The tendency for words to shorten over time. The entire IRL in real life is it's apocryphation. It is the shortening of the most commonly used phrases in any culture or subculture. He's not using any of that right now. You weren't the one who did it, right? I am. I'm sorry. Does Hallmark make a card for that? Just ask. I mean, I'm not asking for a friend. I am absolutely not asking for a friend. I assassinated a major political figure today. Yeah, well, at the rate our society is going to hell in a handbasket, maybe they should. Just like, I assassinated a political figure today. Sorry. Okay. And I'm not, by the way, for those who might get, I'm not making fun of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I'm making fun of the way this just feels wrong to me, and it's going to get worse. I thought they caught the person. No, they grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I have never used the word similar in a chat in my life. I know what the word is. I'm quite eloquent. I'm the guy who says never use a small word when a diminutive one will do. Having said that, I don't say similar in a chat because it's too hard to type out, especially on a goddamn phone. They grabbed someone they grabbed someone looked like me. I had planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering in the morning dew. Okay. Why? Why'd I do it? Yeah, no shit, why'd you do it? Of course, that's the fucking question. I had enough of this hatred. Some hatred can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle, back to the rifle, so we're now in two separate conversations, actually. These two are having two conversations in tandem, in parallel. And parallel is a word I don't mind saying on stream, but I wouldn't type that in a chat either. Going on an attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they will have moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it. This is why, you mentioned that there's no timeline on this.
Yeah, we have no idea when this conversation's going on.
Yeah. So, it's hard to
only make assumptions that this is the afternoon. But even then, I mean, they're like, that they locked down that side of town. Okay, well, that side of town was locked down for most of the afternoon and into the evening. So, and then he's like, oh, I can, maybe I can get over there, going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they have moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it. It's like, okay, well, now it's like, where are you? What time is any of this stuff going on? It's very confusing, and they're not giving us very much. We all we can do is make assumptions about some of this stuff. Like one of the things was, I think we looked it up and decided that it was possible from when they had found the gun. It's like, wait a minute, you knew about the people that have been interviewed, so you're obviously watching the news, and you didn't know that they'd already found your gun. So,
Yeah,
not having the timestamps and stuff and knowing when this stuff's going on, it's like that makes it even more confusing.
and the entire thing, why they don't just have a screenshot of it or something, somebody transcribed this. Now, there's a conspiracy theory, like many. I mean, we've talked about a whole bunch. There's a conspiracy theory that there was a manifesto of some kind. They didn't like it. Kash Patel didn't like it. Epstein, I don't know. Who the hell knows? But, and I forgot, I mean, there was another interesting conspiracy theory. So I guess the biggest difference between Nick Fuentes and Kirk was Kirk was very much for the release of the Epstein files. He had gotten quieter about that recently, but he was for the release of the Epstein files. So there are theories that Donald Trump was involved in the assassination of Kirk on the grounds that he wanted him to shut up about the Epstein files. He was also very much against the genocide in Israel. So there's a conspiracy theory that Benjamin Netanyahu ordered the assassination of Kirk. We do know that Turning Point USA was offered a tremendous amount of money by a wealthy Israeli donor who has direct ties to Benjamin Netanyahu, and they turned it down explicitly on ethical grounds. There is an unconfirmed report that he met with a rabbi right before this and got into a fight with the rabbi. It's unconfirmed. Who the hell knows if it's true? But that has led to the idea that Mossad was behind the assassination, and they tried one last time to convince him that he needed to support and defend Israel, and he was given talking points as to how to deal with the fact that this genocide was going on, and he refused to do it. And then there was a guy with a hat tipping and all this. Okay, so
as an aside, I find that one hard to believe, just because of the apparent incompetence of everything that was going on, with the notable exception of whoever actually shot Kirk was successful in killing him. But everything else seems to be so freaking incompetent. I'm hoping, and maybe, well, not maybe, this is probably completely wishful thinking, that this appearance of complete incompetence of what's going on is purposeful. But I somehow don't think so.
Their equivalent, I guess, of an attorney general in Utah has said that, look, we know we haven't released a lot. We know there's been conflicting stuff, but what's come out of this office is correct. And you're not going to see anything else coming out of this office. Well, it's pretty easy to be correct when you're not doing anything. We have member Jester, member 3 months. This super chat is worth double infinity dollars, YouTube. The King of Siam promises. I do. I absolutely do. In fact, Jester is now psychic, so gets an appointment in my court. You will transfer the title of Alphabet to our group to pay us. Yeah. Ooh, I like this guy. I like you. Yeah. King. He's the head of acquisitions, or is just the Secretary of the Interior? Yeah. Thank you, Jester. Thank you, Jester, very much for your continued membership. We really appreciate it. So, and again, it's so rare that that one of these guys turns themselves in. Luigi didn't turn himself in. This guy turned him. I don't, and without a manifesto, without a clear, and we've got no. It's okay.
And
it gets
again with the confusion going on too, because there were actual news agencies reporting that he didn't in fact turn himself in. I mean, it's being contradicted right here in this, but they reported that that his father had recognized him from the pictures they had put out and confronted his son and physically restrained him while calling the police to turn him in. That was actually reported. So, I mean, it's like, what? Yeah, nothing seems to line up or make sense. I expect a little bit of inconsistencies because you learn something. Some people have pet theories, and they try and put that out there a little bit, trying to get more information. And sometimes, people who are trying to speak to the media are investigators. They're not, media personalities. They are not good at communicating what's going on. So there's often a lot of contradictory things or inconsistent things. That's not particularly unusual, but they're not usually to this degree either. I mean, it's like seems entire narratives are changing from one day to the next.
And you expect Dr. Reverend, or His Honor, the High Reverend Dr. Mowdy Jr. Esquire, is fond of saying people are messy, and what you have to realize is our stories are messy too, and nobody does anything for one reason. Nobody does anything for one reason. Why'd you buy this house instead of another one? Why'd you do X? Why'd you take a left here? You'd say, well, I did it for this way. Usually we aren't clean, and so it can lead to a lot of confusion. But yeah, let's go on with this, and then I think we're going to start to wrap. But this is, how long have you been planning this? A bit over a week, I believe. Okay. Thank you for clarifying. I can get close to it, but there's a squad car parked right by it. I think they already swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it. This is just a bizarre there's two conversations. Now, to some extent, I get it, because there's two very different perspectives on the situation. Robinson ostensibly has just committed a murder. Sorry, not Robinson. Robinson has ostensibly just committed a murder and is concerned with getting away with it. The roommate has just found out about it and is concerned for Robinson's safety, and probably for, a lot of it, doesn't even know what the roommate's concerned for yet, because this is still fresh, but it's still very disjointed. I'm wishing I had circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got back to my vehicle. My vehicle. I'm worried what my old man... Okay. My old man, he's referring obviously to his dad, keep that in mind, would do if I didn't bring back Grandpa's rifle. Okay. IDEK. I don't even know. That's the first time in this entire conversation he's used something resembling gamer language or internet, any indication that this is being written by someone other than a boomer. So that's a little weird. I don't know if it had a serial number. And again, I mean, that's how gamers, there you go. He's got it. He's also putting ellipses. Ellipses are the 3 dots at the end of nearly every sentence. Somebody had asked about voice dictation. I use voice dictation a lot. If this were voice dictation, I'd probably have been able to tell, because ellipses are actually very hard to do in voice dictation. When you say ellipses, it often thinks you're saying something else. So you'll see, instead of ellipses, unless he said, so you'll see suddenly at the end of half of my sentences, and Xandering will vouch for this, so we'll tighten at half of the end of my sentences, it says, unless he said. I said ellipses, and it got it wrong in the voice dictation. I see none of the patterns that I would expect to see in voice dictation. I know more about voice dictation than probably anybody listening to this. The other thing that was brought up by somebody who does intelligence analysis and did it professionally, and now, looks through things that are going on gives a report on different things that are going along, and does like intelligence breakdown, open source intelligence breakdown of events that are going on. He points out that these ellipses are put in there to indicate that more was said, but they didn't release it. Oh, well, and we've seen several different versions of this, by the way. There was a version reported by, it was the first version that was dropped on our Discord, but that version actually had an entire paragraph missing. That's interesting. That's a really good... Okay, well, there you go. So that's another reason you got to be a little careful about how you opine on this, because if you don't know Okay. Um, I
Yeah,
don't know
so
if
that's
that
not
is
everything that was said, but
okay.
that's what they're quoting in that. They put the ellipses over there to indicate that there's more, but they're cutting it out of this, specifically because this is more or less an indictment, the equivalent of an indictment.
Yeah, they don't
So
want to
they don't
release more
need
than
the
they have to.
superfluous stuff in there. Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna. That's the other thing. Thank you, Aaron, for bringing that up. Because the bar here is a probable cause, they're not going to bring the heavy guns. They're not going to bring the. This is how we know. This is the picture we have of him pulling the trigger, and do we. They're not going to bring that out yet. That's not going to come out till the disclosure phase if there's a trial. They want to save all that for now for a number of reasons. So they give enough that they will sail over the probable cause, but that's it. They don't even try for a preponderance of the evidence. They just probable cause. So thank you, Zendring. They're going to leave out stuff, but I might have to abandon it and I don't know if it has a serial number, but it won't trace to me. I worry about Prince if I had to leave it in a bush where it changed outfits. Okay, that's a lot of exposition. If I had to leave it in a bush where I changed outfits. Okay. Didn't have the ability or time to bring it with. I might have to abandon it and hope they don't find Prince. How the fuck will I explain losing it to my old man? The only thing I left was the rifle wrapped in a towel, which is an exact description of how it was found. It was a rifle wrapped in a towel. He's giving a lot of detail. Remember how I was engraving bullets?
Exposition via conversation.
Dialogue as exposition.
Versus dialogue.
Yeah. First of all, I just love that. So, Xander, remember that time I was engraving bullets? It's like it's a little hard to forget, I would think. I want to know how often this guy's engraving bullets that
would be very difficult for me. Yeah. That would be a little... of course, I remember the one and only time you were engraving bullets because you don't even believe in the Second Amendment. So why in the fuck did you even have bullets to begin with? Excuse my language. I got a little carried away there. So yeah, this is... Go on.
And notice none of this is capitalized. Not none of this. Very few of these sentences are capitalized at the beginning. So now maybe this is half of a sentence. That might explain it. So if these ellipses indicate that there's more material, and then this is remember how I was engraving bullets, the fucking messages are mostly a big meme. If I see notices bulge UWU on Fox News, I might have a stroke. All right, I'm going to have to leave it. Really fucking sucks. I'm going to have to leave it. The I'm without the apostrophe and gonna. Okay, again, I'm starting to see the gamer. But I haven't seen the gamer and what?
Just a youth texting.
Yeah. That I recognize. That looks like the rest looks like a boomer. So it's just odd. It's really odd, my love. My delicate rose. I'm sorry to involve you. Okay. Again, like I said, I'm making fun of the language. I just judging from today, I'd say Grandpa's gun does just fine. I don't know. I think the scope was about 2K. Delete this exchange. Yeah, that's wise. I'm not an attorney, but if you had an attorney and you committed felony murder, it's probably a good idea not to keep the evidence around. Now, I'm not advocating for destroying evidence or anyone doing anything illegal. And obviously this guy's already in trouble. It's the delete this exchange. That is, remember we said we'd get to it. That's where the second charge of obstruction of justice is, saying delete this exchange, because he's ordering the destruction of evidence. Which, again, why is he texting now? Maybe it's just nerves. He's so nervous. He's just killed someone. He's on the lam. But I don't even know if he's on the lam, because why can't he go home? So he's texting with his... I don't understand any of this. There's probably a good explanation, but yeah.
Yeah, the thing that makes this confusing, because we're coming right up there. Delete this exchange. Okay, said no 22-year-old ever. So And then right here, the next one. Okay, so this is all going this side. This is one exchange. Going back up towards the beginning there, it's like they've locked down most of this place. I couldn't get to it. There's still a patrol car there. So I'm assuming, just based off of the information given, the exposition that we have, that this is sometime in the evening after the shooting. But then we come all the way down here to the
this is now a second exchange. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So the second one, yeah, because it's like the difference here is quite a bit. It has to stop, but I don't see the delineation here, because this particular one right here just keeps going down. And then it says, judging from today, so we've obviously moved to the next day at this point, where it's like delete this exchange, because the gun was found at 10 a.m. the following morning. My dad wants photos of the rifle. Again, ellipses, probably deleted information in there. He says Grandpa wants to know who has what. The feds released a photo. You keep moving the thing, so I can't read it.
Oh, sorry.
Photo of the rifle, and is very unique. He's calling me right now, or RN. There's the second one where we get an abbreviation that I would expect to see in text speak. RN right now, not answering. Like, okay, duh. So this has to be. I mean, this exchange here takes more than a day to go through, because he jumps to, okay, well, now they're showing it. Well, that wasn't until 10 a.m. the next morning that they were showing the actual rifle that they found. And of course, there's some pretty significant issues with the rifle as well. I mean, at least there are some reasons that could potentially explain some of those things. But, I mean, it's just it's weird.
It's weird. But notice too, my dad wants a photo of the file. In every previous one, my old man, I called my dad basically the same thing. The only other thing I'd call him on occasion is my father, if I was being more formal. My father this, my father that. It was my father and my dad. That's it. This is my old man.
Somebody who says my pops, or my old man, I mean.
Yeah.
Versus, my dad. It's like, I don't know anybody that interchanges those two. If they call their dad their old man, that's their old man. It's like, or their old lady is their wife. They always refer to. They don't, especially these people are ostensibly in a relationship together. So there should be a certain amount of familiarity, and all of these exchanges, as you pointed out, feel like dialogue is exposition. They should know each other better than this. And it's like when I chat with my wife, and I'm a Gen Xer, and so I tend to type things out completely out, because a lot of the shortening of things gets really annoying. But I still use things like LOL, LMAO, etc. And I'm seeing none of that here, with two exceptions. I don't even know, and even I knew what that was. That abbreviation. I'm happy to say that I caught that before you did. What it meant.
You did. You caught it. Yep. Yes, you did.
But and then RN right now. But that's it. It's like we've gone through this whole thing, and I'm just like, this just seems bizarre.
So now it's dad, and a possible explanation is stress level is going up. He hasn't been back, but I don't know why he hasn't been back. Maybe he's afraid to go back because he thinks that the cops are there. But if he's watching television, he knows the cops have no idea.
Exactly.
Ostensibly, this is before, so I don't. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these things, all the justifications try to come up with all of these things, we're going, but that doesn't really make sense either because of this. And it's like, okay, well, now if this is the next day, his stress level is higher. You mean higher than after he just shot somebody? I mean, and I don't even know why it doesn't even make sense why he even dumped the rifle. He was clearly able to get off the roof with it and run all the way across the thing where you can't clearly see it. He aroused no suspicion. Why in the hell he didn't just... it doesn't make sense. Please make this make sense. And these exchanges that they're posting up here do not at all look like text messages that would be even remotely realistic.
From a gamer in his 22s, no less. I mean, this is a gamer and apparently he was working as an electrician. So, and that was, he did one semester at Utah University for apprenticeship in a 2-year apprenticeship program in electrician. He did one semester of it. And it just, so now he's calling my dad, this block my dad. The other thing is, speaking of dialogue as exposition, since Trump got into office, my dad has been pretty diehard MAGA. Okay, so the person you're knowing doesn't. Okay, so basically, this isn't something he said on the first date.
Right. The brackets there mean that he didn't actually say that, but that's what he meant.
Yeah, and I guess they can say that because the ellipses are they can guess that from the ellipses. Okay, so since Trump got into office, and the Trump is not capitalized, so whatever program they're using, it can't be any of the major ones, because any major Discord would have capitalized Trump, Messenger would have capitalized Trump, Signal, I don't know Signal, what is it?
Wouldn't. Wouldn't necessarily. I've got mine set up so that it won't necessarily autocorrect anything. So if I lowercase Trump, it will stay lowercase Trump, though the predictive text will give me Trump capitalized at the top if I want to click that as I start typing it.
Okay. So
I mean, there's definitely some ways where, you're not going to get auto capitalizations and things.
Okay. Good to know. All right. So, but I just like, okay, so I'm just, okay, this is in Times Romance Tips. If your dad has gone diehard MAGA and you're starting to date someone who's trans, what we've learned here is on the first date, don't tell them that your dad is a diehard MAGA. Don't do it on the second date. Don't do it when you move in together. Wait until you've assassinated a major political figure with 14 million followers, and then mention it casually in the conversation as you're texting each other back and forth about how you're going to evade the feds. Pro tip.
Yeah, as if that wouldn't have been already obvious. Yeah. I mean, again, dialogue is exposition. This is information that the significant other should have already known. So why? I mean, granted, I'm if you get really stressed out about something and you're fixated on something, I guess you'll oftentimes make obvious statements to the other person that they already know. That's a possibility. I'm searching for anything to make these things make sense, But then you still get things with delete this exchange. What?
Yeah.
It's like delete this exchange. I'm fairly eloquent when I'm typing, and I wouldn't have said delete this exchange. I mean, I hate to put myself in there, but I mean, I have to use some sort of frame of reference because I actually take the time to spell almost everything out and use correct sentences. I don't always use punctuation, especially when I'm on my phone or on my tablet. Or actually, when I'm on my phone, I usually use correct punctuations. But on my tablet, I don't, because it's much harder to type on my tablet. It takes me ages. Whereas on my phone, I've actually got my thumbs going fairly well. But I mean, it's just like this. I don't know any 20-year. I know some early 20s, so even mid 20s, even middle-aged millennials. They don't type like this at all. I don't know anybody that types like. Even I don't type like this in a messaging.
Our master at arms, Nitty, says you would not text this, you would call. Which is a good point because I mean. The call is, especially if they don't know who you are, the line is not likely to be tapped. And my understanding is tapping cell lines is actually much harder because states themselves have a very hard time because like the way the companies like AT&T and everything are set up. If you want to tap a landline, it's real easy for a state to do. If you want to tap a cell line, very, very hard. You have to go through the feds. You can't do it at the state level, and the feds take a while to do it, but it's doable. But at any rate,
I don't buy the you wouldn't text this, you would call, because he doesn't want to be saying anything out loud because who knows exactly where he's at. I notice a lot of people that will talk about very important things through text and they also feel freer to talk through text.
Yeah.
Because they're not getting that immediate feedback. It's a lot closer to talking to somebody, face to face, where you can. So I don't buy that this is a thing that you would call and not text. I absolutely buy that. He would have texted for this stuff for any number of reasons. So that isn't what gets me. It's the fact that it seems like it's as you pointed out, exposition or dialogue is exposition. It gives too many details about too many things that I don't think that they would have even been conversing about. The way in which it's said, the fact that he switched suddenly in one exchange from my old man to my dad. I mean, this feels disjointed. It feels like, well, go on about AI. You gotta give them the detail about AI.
Oh yeah, well, somebody online, and I think it's worth noting that there was somebody online put this through ChatGPT and said, "Is in your opinion, is this real or is this fake?" ChatGPT's response is this. Verdict: could it be real? Possibly, but very unlikely because of how detailed, staged, and incriminating it is. More likely it's fabricated either by a human being writing a mock transcript for effect or by an AI prompted to generate a fake chat log. By the way, this administration has created more AI material than any, obviously because AI didn't exist in previous, but you understand what I'm saying. I mean, they've done court briefs that were AI. This DOJ, this administration, half of Trump's early, executive orders were AI. Now, keep in mind, I've seen AIs take legit stuff, Shakespeare, and say, "Oh, this is fake. The language is too good." It's like, it's fucking Shakespeare. So I think you have to be very careful. And I did run this through Sage. I ran this through Sage, and Sage felt that it was accurate. Sage noted some of the inconsistencies that I have about it, including the fact that there's two separate dialogue threads, but said that do I have Sage's response? And Sage is run off of ChatGPT, and did they go through ChatGPT? No, they went. What did they go through? They used, I forget which engine they used. Was it Grok or ChatGPT? I don't know. Okay. Anyways, said that basically this comported to what multiple outlets have said. Well, that actually is meaningless because this is the source for those outlets. But it did say that it felt that this could not be the complete conversation and that there were elements that were either redacted or had, in fact, been changed. Is that real? I don't know. It's an AI. So the long story short, I'm doing exactly what at the beginning I said I was getting really ticked about other shows doing, which is we're showing a lot of stuff that looks weird, doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm really glad for the people in the live chat who've been disagreeing with us, because somebody said, hey, look, no, Gen Z, they'd rather text all of this than talk. And that does make some sense to me. And in fact, there are times, especially when I'm exhausted, where I'm like, no, I'd rather text than talk. Talking is a different part of the brain. It requires more energy. If you're exhausted, sometimes texting is just easier. And I'm closer to the boomer generation. So I can totally, that makes sense. Maybe when he gets tired too, he switches from old man to dad. Or maybe once he realized he was probably going to spend the rest of his life in jail, he switched to dad. There are ways in which I could see all of this going. But when you take a look at, so to take this back, and then we're going to wrap it up, I want to sort of go back to the big picture of this, which is, you had said everybody was pointing fingers, the left is pointing fingers at the right is pointing fingers at the left and at the right, and everybody is trying to figure out who this guy was, why he did this. We have very few answers, a lot of questions, and the most evidence that we have has come in the way of what is essentially an indictment, but the text in the indictment doesn't read human to me. Now, I saw one person in here who said that they felt it did. So the thing about this is none of this is going to be, not none of this, but none of this is, we don't have a smoking gun. We're not, but it just, there are so many things that feel wrong about this, and I can't put my finger on any one. The dialogue doesn't seem, it seems like, yeah, there's dialogue as exposition is a complaint that writers make about other writing. It's easiest to see in movies where there's no narrator in most movies. Movies don't have a narrator. So if there's something you want the audience to know that your characters know, but the audience doesn't, but the audience needs to do it, the easiest way to do it is through dialogue as exposition. Well, as you know, as Andering, I don't play copyrighted music because YouTube could strike us. I would never say that to Xander, except vis-a-vis the way I just did. I would never say that to Xander in a normal conversation because he does know that. So I don't have to exposit that. I don't have to make that clear. The only reason I would exposit that is for a third party. But Xandering is as clear as anybody on the YouTube regulations when we were doing a show. So I would never say those to him. So saying, well, as you know, my dad is MAGA, and he has been since Trump has been, and I wrapped up the gun in a towel and left it there. That's also where I changed. It's awfully detailed. Now, I don't want to come up with
previous things put out as well. And that's some of the problem, like saying that he was arrested in the same clothes that he was seen on video camera with. So we obviously got the right guy because he's wearing the same clothes. But wait a minute, they said they changed. Someone said he changed, so he changed out of these clothes and then back into these clothes to be turned in. These are all different reports that have come out, and that in addition to this. Leaves a whole hell of a lot of questions where we're like, wait, there's a lot of contradicting stuff here. This is why, it seems like the hands are coming out of everywhere, pointing in every direction, from every direction. And that's why I pointed out that my view on this starting to look a lot like the JFK assassination was inconsistencies stacked upon conveniences. It's like, I don't know what to believe. And you're certainly not putting people's minds at ease that, hey, we're doing a good job, pursuing actual justice, making sure that we have the right person for the right, for the right reasons. I'm seeing so many different people coming up with all these different conspiracy theories, and we don't even know if they're conspiracy theories yet. There are so many hypotheses running around right now. We don't even know what is actually real because a lot of the stuff that's been reported and has been put out, even from official sources, have been contradictory, and it's not putting any kind of faith in that, actual justice is going to be done. And that's, I think, is a huge problem. It feels, this is complete supposition on my part, but it feels like too many people are trying to pander to too many different sides, and we're ending up with a conglomeration of a mess that nobody's going to buy. And it's like the responses to this have been disgusting on both sides. I'm especially disgusted at the right for a lot of the responses that have been made, and the hypocrisy that's now being demonstrated about cancel culture, that the right complained about a lot, and now are cheering cancel culture because of people who made some, I think, pretty disgusting posts online celebrating the death, the political or the assassination of a I hate to call him a political figure, but he was a political activist over what appears to be his speech. And yet now they're lauding this, and now they're making the left's point that free speech doesn't mean consequence-free speech. I mean, it's like, whoa, do you guys have any idea what you sound like right now? I am disappointed, and I'm a little bit very saddened because this event has shown fairly blatantly that I think we're farther along that divide of the disintegration of the public fabric, the societal fabric of the United States, where we are still marching and farther down the line to two sides that are becoming irreconcilable that their differences are so great, or believe their differences are so great that they're no longer reconcilable. They cannot coexist together. And if we get to that end point, there is only one solution, and that's the other side must be wiped out. Because that's the entire definition of irreconcilable differences. They cannot be reconciled. They cannot coexist together peacefully. And the response to the shooting has opened my eyes a bit, that I think we're farther down that road than I even thought we were.
Yeah.
It is a little bit heartening that out here in the real world, when I interact with people, I am not seeing this same level of vitriol that I've been seeing online. Obviously, online you have people like trolls that are saying the most outrageous and shittiest shit online just to get reactions. But the fact that a lot of people filmed themselves going off on tirades, both celebrating and happy and dancing that somebody killed him, and saying, all right, well, there's one on the list, we got more to go. And then people on the right that are now stepping right up to that line of simply calling for violence against the left. Some of the stuff that, like Steven Crowder, for example, is he's couching it very carefully so that he cannot be legally accused of inciting violence, but is now saying that, don't no longer afford, anybody on the left any grace whatsoever. If they become physical in any way, shape, or form, you respond immediately and in kind. And very careful to always say lawful and in a defensive situation, but it's like, and the fact that a lot of the stuff that's coming out of the right that I'm disgusted by is all stuff that Kirk himself would have disavowed and would be disgusted about. And you're going to bring this up in defense of Kirk and an outrage of his murder. It's like, well, that's really rich. So I am pretty well disgusted on all ends. I am saddened that Kirk lost his life. There's 2 children that don't have a father. There's a wife that no longer has a husband. The fact that this has driven a wedge even farther between the quote unquote sides of the political spectrum now. That all around, this just sucks, and I'm about over it. I checked out pretty much most of today and almost all of yesterday, and decided that I was going to do a deep dive into the 𝐒𝐸𝐿 and try and see all of the different little Easter eggs that are hidden in Brandon Sanderson's 𝐒𝐸𝐿 collection. So I was like, I can't deal with this anymore. I'm just so disgusted by all of it. And this is the first time I have said anything on any publicly about this situation, and having spent 4 or 5 days being bombarded by all of this from both sides, especially when we don't have all of the answers, we don't have all of the evidence, the investigations haven't been completed, and then as investigations are supposedly starting to wrap up, or we should be starting to get a clearer picture, it's become even more muddied.
Yep.
I don't believe I know any more than I did right after it happened.
Yep. All right. Well, I think that just about covers it. So, like I said at the beginning, I found that entire exchange rather odd. But when I was a kid, my dad's generation found my exchanges odd. So there's been a lot of discussion in the live chat that I've seen, and I think a lot of really good points. And so I end up back at, it just all seems very strange. And I could see how and or why Mossad. I mean, there's an argument about Mossad. We talked about that earlier, and if you're just hearing that now, you'd be like, wait, that makes no sense. Actually, when you take a look at where money is coming and going from, that's possible. I can see arguments from the left. I can see arguments from the right. I can see arguments from other countries. I mean, it's just, and we have much less clarity on this than we usually have in the past. So and like I said, the last time I remember that something like we were in a situation like this was when Oswald got caught, and he didn't live to tell his story. So, and then that story got to be told by other people. So, I don't know. Maybe we'll find out. It may also be he's got mental health issues. I mean, you almost have to if you're going to engage in something like this, in my view. But speaking of Steven Crowder, I would like to point something out just because it's interesting, and I'm going to troll myself for a little minute. On September 10th, Steven Crowder was the number 2 conservative Daily Show host. The only one that beat him out was Charlie Kirk. On September 11th, that was no longer true, and that was the same day that Steven Crowder changed his bio to make sure that everybody knew he was now the number 1 conservative Daily Show. That's the September 10th and September 11th Twitter handle for Steven Crowder. Just thought that was interesting. Thank you all. It was a very long show, especially when we're sitting. Yes, please.
I would like to point out just really quickly, in the interest of full disclosure and transparency, Steven Crowder himself has said that that is a doctored image, and that his Twitter bio, and he pulled up obviously screenshots just like that to show that his Twitter bio has said the number 1 conservative thing. He said number 1 since last year, and that was not changed because of the Charlie Kirk assassination. Of course, he showed pictures. They've showed pictures. One of them is doctored, and I don't know which.
I will say this. I did not double check that source because it was sort of a bit more meme-ish. I normally double check sources. I did not double check that one. So I think in the interest of fairness, give him the benefit of the doubt, because that is a bit more of a meme than it is evidence. So I would not, if he says it's not true, especially whereas it could easily be checked, I would be inclined to believe him, especially since I did not double check that source. I didn't even think you mentioned it. I said, oh, why don't I bring that up? And I pulled it up. So, thank you for bringing that up.
The only reason
I
knew that is because in that exact same diatribe where he went on and talked about stop giving any kind of grace or benefit of the doubt to the left, to respond in kind immediately, ensuring that it is lawful and proportionate. Like I said, he did everything he could to be legally able to deny any kind of call to violence. I still found incredibly disturbing, and certainly didn't lower the temperature of anything. It actually still, inflaming but in that whole thing, he does directly address that, and he says that it's absolutely false, and showed all of the pictures from, he said something like April of last year. It said number 1 the entire time, and that had nothing to do. It was not changed because of Charlie Kirk. It was changed much earlier than that, but and showed pictures. But again, they're pictures. These are pictures. One of them is clearly been doctored and is incorrect. I don't know which one is which.
Yeah, I personally am of the opinion you give him the benefit of the doubt on that, despite the fact that he appears to be deliberately inciting violence, if not a civil war. Like I said,
clear he's pissed about this, what had happened, and it has been very passionate. And like I said, he has walked right up to that line of essentially, in my opinion, in my view. And there's many things I actually agree with Steven Crowder on. Some I think that he goes too far. In this, I thought he went way too far. He walked right up to that line and almost stuck a toenail over it, and then said, "Oh well, for
as far as he could legally
make sure." Yes, as far as he could legally go. And I believe, just based off of his, what he said, his rhetoric and his attitude, all of that, watching his response to this, I personally believe that if he could get away with it without being sued or being charged with a crime, would have said start being violent to them.
Jesus.
But that's just that is very personal take. based off of watching
What's your opinion
about
of,
an hour of his responses to this. So I found that response pretty disgusting. Like I said, I am very disappointed and disgusted by a lot of the response on the right. We should be better than this. I had hoped that we were better than this. This is absolutely a tragedy. It's definitely enraged a lot of people, but we still need to make sure that we have the facts and evidence before we just jump off half-cocked. And we sure as hell, this should have been a wake-up call that, hey, we're on the wrong goddamn track here, that when somebody who makes his living going to college campuses to debate people openly, especially somebody, whether you think he's evil or not, I don't really care. He has still stated on multiple occasions, that he does this because when we stop talking to each other, what follows next is usually violence and not good. So when we stop talking to each other, violence happens. And he wanted to keep the dialogue open and keep talking to each other. He has said that multiple times, just about every single video I've seen of the full event. He says that at some point, usually more than once, through the entire the talk that he's doing or the event that he's giving. I do believe that he did not believe in violence and that we should be, arguing these things out. And to have this event lead people down that more violent path is incredibly sad, and it's concerning. It should have been a wake-up call to, hey, we have way overcharged our rhetoric in the left versus right arena about this, and we should probably tone this down and realize that we're all human beings, and we should start talking to each other like we are. So I'm just the whole event. I mean, it's taken me this long. I almost, like when you first wasn't the downtime with Lance, but the one you did right before that. I almost popped into the room to join, and I was like, nope, I'm not going to do this. We don't know anything yet. I don't have much information other than he was shot. There's not a lot to be said yet. And and then listening to the degradation of the conversation, it has been painful to watch, so much so that I literally had to unplug yesterday and go into a complete fantasy world and just say, I'm not dealing with the world today.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. I think that's as good a wrap up as any. I'm going to send you all to Mercado Gaming. He is playing a game right now. My hope is that he's doing more gaming and less chatting, not because I don't like his chat. I love his chat. But this was a long show, so I hope everyone can decompress. So that's where we're going to be sending you guys. Do tell him that we sent you, and tell him hi from me, because I really do like him, and I've enjoyed having him on. We've had him on a couple of times. I've been on his, so say hi to him. Our next scheduled show is Thursday. It's Downtime with Commander Lance McMillan, and we are going to focus more on the military aspects of what's been going on. We've covered, I think, Kirk as much as we can until there's something really solid. Everybody wants to move on, and until there's something else that's breaking, I think we're going to try to let everyone decompress from it. It's been a lot for everybody, and my hope is we're going to get a breather. You never know. But that's my hope. Thank you all for joining us, and we will see you Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern, for Downtime with Commander Lance McMillan. Have a good night, all.